Hi, I'm Jacqueline.
And I'm Courtney, and this is Caffeinated Crimes.
I almost played a very dangerous game tonight, but Courtney talked some sense into me, so I did not. But I texted her right before we hopped on to record and, asked how bad of an idea she thought it was if I took some NyQuil before we started recording so that, by the time we finish recording, I can just crawl on into bed. But will I make it to the end of the recording if I do so is the problem. So, Courtney and all of her wisdom is like, well, you do speak first, so maybe you can just speak your part and then take your NyQuil. And I'm like, that's probably a better way to do that.
Because, we talk a lot before we start
hmm
recording. And also, I've seen you after one beer, and I assume NyQuil's similar. And I just don't think it would have been good.
Yeah, by the time we got to the end, I mean, who knows what my perk of the week would have been or what our conversation about this case would have been. Or maybe I would just be completely asleep and you're just like, well, I'm just going to end this now. And
Yeah, I've been like, I'll just finish talking from here. And I'm hitting record, so I would probably just end it after I get done
yep.
talking.
So you're just like, okay, well, that was a good time. Yeah, my toddler lovingly shared her cold with me because I guess it's kind of impossible not to get it when, the toddler is literally coughing and sneezing. Like we'll be like staring straight ahead, looking at the TV, and we'll turn to me to sneeze and then turn back to the TV. And I'm like,
Hmm.
why? Why you
Yeah.
like that? So, yeah. I know Courtney sent me some update this week that I've already
Yeah.
forgotten.
It's because BTK is back in the news.
That's
So
what it
there
was.
are two more unsolved cases in Oklahoma and Missouri. And so right now he's the prime suspect in them. I think he like lived around the areas.
hmm
Let's see. So it looks like one of them in the Oklahoma one was Cynthia Kinney. She was reported missing in 1976, and he had lived in Park City for years. And two of the murders he committed like were in that area, so kind of around there. Um, and then the other was the one in McDonald County, Missouri. So he was the prime suspect in the death of 22-year-old Shauna Beth Garber, and she was found in December 1990. So it looks like they're kind of evaluating him as a really good possible suspect because he lived near both of these areas. So they think he could be linked to it. I know also in our continuing unfortunate saga of shootings in America, there was a shooting
Yeah.
at UNC. Um, and there was also a shooting in Florida, I believe Jacksonville, that was racially
hmm
motivated, where a man went and killed, I believe it was three Black people. So not great.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen a lot of people sharing, the text that some of the students like sent to, family members and friends and whatever. And a lot of people in the comments are like, what is even the point at this point? Because if it doesn't affect you, if it has not affected you by now, it's never going to. And it's like, it's
When
just
it's literal
so
like kindergartners and they still don't care, it's hard to
exactly.
know when they will care. So
Yeah. That's the thing. Like, does it have to literally happen to someone that you know, and then it becomes an issue that's worthy of your time and attention? I don't know.
yeah.
Um, but also the BTK one, I would find that interesting if he was responsible for those, but he didn't admit to it or like claim them because he was so like proud of the things that he did and
Mhm.
liked the glory and all of that. So I'm like, it's an interesting. I wonder if he was responsible for those, if there was something different about them, like in his mind, that
Mhm.
led him to like hide that for all these years versus the others that he was so open about?
Yeah, or maybe he was like, I'll admit to these ones they have me on, but I'm just gonna ignore the rest of these that you don't know about. Like if I'm
Yeah,
like shiny, shiny, I did these, like you won't look at the others I've done too.
true, true.
Which I'm pretty sure I saw his daughter is gonna be at CrimeCon, I
Yes,
think.
I did see that. I
So
did see that.
whatever panel she's doing, I'm gonna have to make sure to go to.
Yes, I would be very interested in that as well. I was gonna say, will we have gone to CrimeCon by the time this comes out? But yeah, this comes out in less than a week, so we will have not gone to
Nope,
CrimeCon yet
we will
because we're on
not.
a very short editing schedule right now, which is unusual for us. But it's been a busy summer, and Courtney's been gone, and then I'm about to be gone, and so we'll get back in our normal routine at some point, hopefully.
I think it's kind of nice though, because like when we bulk record, it's like everything is so behind and so outdated. So I kind
That's
of
true.
like where it's like we're giving you updates and it's less than a week old. Like that's the one
Yeah,
thing like I don't like about being so far ahead is like half the time our updates are
true.
just so outdated. But it's also like stressful if you're recording like the day before you publish every week.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Like I like how we were before that was kind of like a week and a half-ish. So it
mhm.
was like you had a little bit of wiggle room. But yeah, as long as we are like able to record on a week-to-week basis, it's fine. It's when stuff comes up and then we have to like double record and then it's like, oh
Mhm.
no, we have an episode coming out in 2 days and we have to record that and something else. And
Which will be
you
the
know,
next episode. So let's hope
yeah,
that goes off smoothly.
exactly. Um, Speaking of like when people record episodes, it's really funny listening to a lot of like the like TV show rewatch episode podcast that I listen to because the SAG strike is going on right now, so they aren't talking about like the shows that they've been in. So but I guess they're allowed to like release stuff that was recorded prior to the strike. They're just not allowed to like create new content. So all of them are like, oh, this was recorded May, blah blah blah. And I'm like, wow, these
Mhm.
people like record way ahead of time, like which makes sense
Yeah.
because they're very busy people as well. And it's just you never really think about it, especially ones that aren't really talking about like time relevant things in the beginning like we are. You don't really realize
Like,
how far
yeah, like
ahead
office
they've
ladies,
recorded.
like
Yeah.
they're only talking about the episode, like they're not really talking as much. Yeah, I noticed with like Armchair Expert, like for weeks, they were like, this was recorded like before the strike. But I feel
Hmm.
like every podcast is just like doing it differently. I'm like, does anyone know
Yeah.
what's going on? Like, nobody knows
I,
where
I think
they
that's like
stand.
a big part of it is that things are just so different that it's like even trying to figure out what lines to draw for the strike. They're like, what are we allowed to do? What are we not allowed to do? Like what? Because
Because I
like,
think Drama Queens said at one point, they were like, we can talk about it, but we can't bring other people in to talk about it. Or that was at something at some point.
but then I think they also said they can talk about it if they're watching the DVD versions because that was like a different negotiation versus if they're watching it on streaming because that's like the whole issue. But I
And
think
they
you're
can
right that
like
it's like,
bring people on and talk about other stuff, but not the
yeah,
episodes, which I don't know. It's a mess. And then I know like some podcasts rewatch that I've done are just like, we're pausing. Like we're just
yeah,
not going to release anything. Cause I feel like that's just easier than trying to figure out like the line. But I know a lot of
yeah,
people have like contr obligations via contracts
yeah.
to release episodes. So it's like, what do you do?
Yeah, because that's the thing. It's like, oh, like you treated me fairly in this contract, but the people who I did the original work for that led to this contract did not. So like I'm striking against them, but not you. And that, yeah, it's very complicated. So I don't
Yeah.
know, but
It
let us know
helps
what you
me
guys
get
think
caught
about
up
that.
on my weekly podcast though, because like with
That
the
is
drama
true.
queens, like with them just like interviewing people about random stuff, I'm like, I can skip that. I don't really care.
I don't know. I think they're pretty interesting, but you know,
Yeah, I just feel like it gets to a point where it's just like kind of the same thing over and over again, where I'm like,
yeah.
I'm good.
You're like, yeah, I've heard the story and 15 other things. Yeah, I understand
Yeah.
that. All right, well, I guess we're just going to go ahead and hop in today's episode. There are a lot of sources, so we apologize for that. But we started with the Citizen 4 documentary, an NBC News article, whistleblower.org, a CNN article, a couple of articles from amnesty.org, intelligence.gov's website, MTSU's website, WikiLeaks, TheIntercept.com, and The Guardian. Edward Joseph Snowden was born on June 21st, 1983, in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, to Lottie and Elizabeth, who went as Wendy Snowden. Lonnie was a Coast Guard officer, so they did move around a bit, but he spent a lot of his time growing up around Fort Meade in Maryland. He went to high school in Anne Arundel County, just south of Baltimore, but he did drop out after his sophomore year in 1988. So shortly after this, he became fascinated with computers and technology So he found a few friends who were also interested in computers, and they all also shared an interest in Japanese anime culture. Around this time, he also registered on the Ars Technica website, which is a hacking and technology forum, and began posting as the one true hoo-ha or just hoo-ha about role-playing video games. So his parents got divorced in 2001, and he continued to live in Ellicott City, Maryland. Snowden eventually got his General Educational Development, or GED, which also I never realized that that's what that stood for. Never in my life have I
Yeah, I almost put just GED, and then I was like, but I mean, I guess a lot of people like maybe don't know what GED stands for
yeah,
or like
because
think
I
about
guess I
it.
thought general education degree or designation or something like that. I never realized it was development. But anyway,
Yeah.
but he did get a GED, which is a high school diploma equivalency. And he attended a community college on and off. In March of 2004, he enlisted in an Army Reserve Special Forces training program, and he wanted to fight to help free people from oppression in Iraq, but he did end up breaking both of his legs in a training accident and was discharged in September. He then landed a job as a security guard at the Center for Advanced Study of Language at the University of Maryland, which has a close relationship with the National Security Agency, or NSA. In 2006, Snowden was hired by the CIA as a technical/IT expert, and he then receives a top secret clearance. Snowden is eventually posted to Geneva, Switzerland, under diplomatic cover as an IT and cybersecurity expert for the CIA, and this gives him access to a large number of classified documents. So it was around this time that he really started to see what the government was doing and felt at this point that he was part of a system that was doing more harm than good. And at some point in late 2009, a critical assessment of Snowden's behavior and work habits was placed in his file by his supervisor. And he said that he had tried to break into classified computer files that he did not have access to. Snowden then decided to leave the CIA and start working as an NSA contractor with Dell. And over the next few years, he would switch between assignments with the NSA and CIA with Dell, including spending time in Japan.
Which I never realized, and maybe it's different now, but I'm like, you travel so much for these positions that are like computer-based positions. It's so weird to me. I guess maybe you can't have like your own computer at your home, like you have to go into the office and
Yeah,
use those. But I was like, this man is just traveling the world with the CIA right now.
that is interesting. Yeah, I never really thought about that. But yeah, I guess for security purposes, it's like, no, you have to come to,
Yeah.
imagine if you're just like, yeah, I just work remotely for the CIA on my little computer.
At my home Wi-Fi.
Exactly. Which, side story, Courtney was here this weekend and was mad that my Wi-Fi username and password is not recognizable, so she changed it. So now I have to change my Wi-Fi username and password on every device, and you never
Hmm.
realize how many devices you have that run on Wi-Fi until you're like I tried to look at my Ring doorbell earlier, and I was like, shit, I haven't updated that yet. I gotta update this now. I got
Yeah.
anyway.
That's the one bad thing about updating the name. But now
Yeah,
you
but
have
I'm
an
sure it'll
easily rememberable password.
exactly. I don't think that's a word, but
I know, but I said it twice, so now it's a word.
I like it. I say we go with it. But yeah, I'm sure in the long run it will save me more time of having to look it up when I do get a new device and then having to look it up to give to other people. I just got to get caught up first,
Yeah.
which Andrew still can't get on his work computer for the Wi-Fi. He had to hardwire in because I guess they have some security something or other. I don't know. Anyway,
Interesting.
so Snowden, who's not in my home with my Wi-Fi, I hope, maybe, I don't know. But in March of 2012, he moves to Hawaii to work at an NSA facility there as a Dell employee. And he lives in a house in Waipahu and was later joined by his long term girlfriend, Lindsay Mills. In December of 2012, Snowden contacts Glenn Greenwald, who is a lawyer and columnist for The Guardian, and they're not able to establish a secure communication method, so their correspondence stalls. A month later, Laura Poitras, an American documentary film director/producer, started receiving anonymous encrypted emails from Snowden. In March of 2013, Snowden applies for a job as a contractor with Booz Allen Hamilton at the same NSA facility in Hawaii. He did later admit that he did so to try and get access to more documents that he could leak. In May 2013, Snowden starts sending documents to Poitras, Greenwald, and Barton Gellman of the Washington Post.
And I don't think I included this, but Laura Poitras is the filmmaker on Citizen 4, that documentary,
Oh,
which
okay.
is really, really interesting. Everyone should go watch it. It didn't provide like a lot of like research information, but it's basically like from the time Snowden is like meeting with them
Hmm.
to the time of him like fleeing to Russia. It's like all straight footage of him like telling them everything and
Mm.
stuff like that.
Oh, wow. Okay. So he then tells his NSA supervisor that he needs to take some time off to undergo treatment for epilepsy. And he tells his girlfriend that he'll be gone for vague reasons. Snowden tells Poitras and Greenwald to meet him in Hong Kong, and he arrived on May 20th, and Poitras and Greenwald arrived on June 2nd. Snowden gives them his credentials. Previously, he worked as a systems engineer, systems administrator, senior advisor for the CIA, solutions consultant, and telecommunications information systems officer within the intelligence community. He had top secret clearance, and he had a higher access than most NSA employees. Snowden tried to give all the details of how deep the NSA spies on civilians. He said the efforts really started after 9/11, and he said that NSA employees had access to drone feeds straight on their desktop. Not always murder drones, but surveillance drones all across the world, and infrastructure that NSA has built across the US and the world in agreement with other countries' leaders that intercepts basically every digital communication, every radio communication, every analog communication that it has sensors to detect. So the vast majority of human and computer to computer communications are automatically ingested without targeting. So now individuals can retroactively search communications. They can look up someone by some information that would link them or almost link them, like an email address, IP address, phone number, credit card, and show them any of that information in the past, as well as put a tag on where anytime in the future they will then get notified as this communication is happening. NSA Director Keith Alexander told Congress in 2012 that they were not intercepting Americans' emails, phone calls, text messages, Google searches, etc. He said that it would require a court order. Snowden confirmed that this was all a lie. He says that 1.2 million people are on various levels of their watch list, and he also revealed how the U.S. was misusing the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act permits intelligence and law enforcement agencies to acquire from a service provider records of someone's communications, such as phone calls or emails that are relevant to terrorism or espionage investigation. So Snowden showed how the Bush and Obama administrations had been secretly using the Patriot Act to acquire Americans' phone data in bulk. On June 5th, The Guardian posted an article with documents provided by Snowden that talked about how the NSA collected domestic email and telephone data from Verizon. The next day, The Guardian and Washington Post posted articles showing how the NSA program, PRISM, forces U.S. internet companies to hand over data on domestic users. Then on June 9th, The Guardian leaked that Edward Snowden was their informant. Snowden was fired by Booz Allen Hamilton, and in a statement, the company said, quote, news reports that this individual has claimed to have leaked classified information are shocking, and if accurate, this action represents a grave violation of the code of conduct and core values of our firm. On June 14th, 2013, the U.S. government charges Snowden with 3 felonies: theft, unauthorized communication of national defense information, and willful communication of classified communications intelligence information to an unauthorized person, the latter 2 after violations of the Espionage Act of 1917.
And so, just a little bit about the Espionage Act of 1917. I figured I would just kind of give everyone, because I mean, who really knows about it besides just hearing it? So,
Not me, not a single thing about it, so please tell me.
So, President William Howard Taft signed into law the Defense Secrets Act of 1911, criminalizing both the collection of military installations and facilities and the sharing of sensitive information with who lacked appropriate clearance. So, after the U.S. entered the war in June 1917, Congress passed the Espionage Act that built on the 1911 Act and added new elements. So, the Espionage Act sought to crack down on wartime activities that were considered dangerous or disloyal. And this included attempting to acquire defense-related information with the intent to harm the U.S. or acquiring code and signal books, photographs, blueprints, and other such documents with intention of passing them to America's enemies. So basically, it was just being like trying to prevent spies, basically, and making that extremely punishable. So the act also outlawed false statements intended to interfere with military operations, attempts to incite insubordination or obstruct the recruitment of troops, and false statements promoting the success of America's enemies. So violations of this law would result in a $10,000 fine and 20 years imprisonment. Again, that was like in 1917 when it first came on.
Mm-hmm.
And so a few notable people who've been charged through the Espionage Act include Julius and Ethel Rosenberg. So they spied for the Soviets during World War II, even passing secrets about the development of the atomic bomb. So they were convicted in 1951, and in 1953, they became the only Americans ever executed for this crime, which I thought was interesting. Also charged with espionage was John Walker, Aldrich Ames, and Robert Hansen, and they were all charged due to helping the Soviets in some capacity. But one of the most recent references to the Espionage Act actually occurred when raiding Donald Trump's Florida residence. So the search warrant did reference the Espionage Act. We don't really know in what capacity, is that still all kind of hush hush, but that is probably one of the most recent references to the Espionage Act in America.
Wow. Well, that pretty much sums up everything you need to know about. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, basically. So back to Snowden. Let's go back. Before 2 sentences later, I go on another tangent because I thought it was interesting. The U.S. asked Hong Kong to extradite him, and 2 days later, WikiLeaks organizes his departure from Hong Kong to seek political asylum. So, of course, I had to go to side tangent on WikiLeaks because it's pretty appropriate.
I personally love a side tangent, so continue on.
If only these two weren't just like back to back, but that's just how it is. So WikiLeaks was founded in 2006 by Julian Assange. So WikiLeaks specializes in the analysis and publication of large data sets of censored or restricted materials involving war, spying, and corruption, and has published more than 10 million documents and associated analysis. So how Julian describes it is it's kind of a library of persecuted documents. So anytime they receive a document that's like classified, like they'll look at it, analyze it, publish it so that everyone can know. I feel like WikiLeaks was pretty popular around like late 2000s, early 2010s. Like I remember a lot of people like talking about it being like WikiLeaks like exposing stuff and people being like, oh my gosh, what are they going to expose next? And then it kind of dropped off, but they are still around and publishing any classified documents they get. They're just trying to, I don't know, kind of do what Snowden was doing and make people aware of like what's kind of going on.
Yeah.
So Julian Assange is also currently facing charges from the U.S. government. In May 2019, a federal grand jury in Virginia issued an indictment against him for 17 counts of violation of the Espionage Act for receiving and publishing classified documents. And 3 of the counts are based solely on the publication of the documents. So he's being held in a high security prison in the UK based on the US's extradition request. And actually, just recently in August 2023, which is when this was recorded, the US did say they were considering a plea deal with Julian that would allow him to return to Australia, which is his home country, I guess, because he's been in this jail since like 2019, I'm pretty sure. So they're like, maybe we can just cut a deal and you can just go back home to Australia. Like maybe we can just this. So back to Snowden. This was before Julian's charges, and he did want to help out a fellow whistleblower. So they planned to fly him from Hong Kong to Ecuador with a stop in Russia. However, he was stranded in Sheremetyevo. I forgot to look that up. Sorry, Russia, please don't come for me. Their international airport. And this was after the U.S. rescinded his passport. So once they knew he wasn't in the U.S., they paused, canceled, whatever, his passport, so he can't really go anywhere.
Just pause. Just put a hold on this for a second.
Just put a hold. Just put a flag on that.
Right.
Then when he needs to come back, okay, well, unpause. So
what does it play again? It's fine. Go ahead now.
So he's stuck in the transit center of the airport, and an international group of lawyers were representing Snowden pro bono. After 40 days in the transit zone of the Moscow airport, Snowden receives political asylum in Russia for 1 year. This was a temporary asylum as they reviewed his case further to kind of see what's going on. But I just could not imagine being stuck in a transit zone of an airport for over a month.
Right? That is crazy.
Yeah. So around this time, the Guardian continues to publish articles based on documents that Snowden provided them. On August 1st, they released an article detailing that NSA funded some British intelligence because the UK could collect data that the NSA legally could not. So they're showing like the NSA is like paying other countries different things so that they can get like information they legally can't. Like it goes really far.
Figuring out like a workaround for like what they're not allowed to do.
Yeah, the loophole. So later in October, the director of national intelligence, James Clapper, says in a conference that Snowden leaks have aided America's enemies and put lives at risk. He said it also did damage to the relationship with their allies. Around this time, the Washington Post released a report on documents that showed the NSA collected over 250 million email inbox views and contact lists a year from online services like Yahoo, Gmail, and Facebook. So 250 million in a year.
Wow.
In November, Snowden writes a letter published in a German magazine called A Manifesto for the Truth, where he says mass surveillance is a global problem and needs a global solution. And a few weeks later, he posts an open letter to Brazil offering to help investigate U.S. surveillance of Brazilian citizens. So he's like, if you guys need help, I got evidence if you need anything. On December 16, 2013, U.S. District Judge Richard Leon rules that the NSA's gathering of data on all telephone calls made in the United States appears to violate the Constitution's protection against unreasonable searches. But Leon, who is an appointee of former President George W. Bush, put his ruling on hold to allow the government to appeal. So he's like, that's my ruling, but I'm going to put it on hold if you guys want to. I know you guys are probably going to try to appeal this. And then on December 27th, another district judge, William Pauley III of Manhattan, comes to the opposite conclusion, saying their collection of phone data is legal and constitutional. So nobody's on the same page.
Nope, they never are.
No. So in January 2014, President Barack Obama ordered the Attorney General to study possible reforms of the program and tried to reassure the public that the NSA was not listening to private phone calls or reading their emails. And he did defend NSA employees. Many news articles continue publishing information based on Snowden's leaked documents that revealed a lot of data taken from YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Snowden even appeared at the South by Southwest Music and Technology Festival via teleconference and says the NSA is setting fire to the future of the internet and asking technologists to like help fix this. So he does this a lot, like continuing on like a lot of like teleconferences since he's kind of stuck where he is. We'll get to that. In July 2014, Lindsay Mills, if you remember, is Snowden's longtime girlfriend, does move to Moscow to be with him. And the U.S. had made some attempts to ask Russia to extradite him, but Russia has made no attempts to do so. Snowden calls himself a whistleblower and says he tried multiple times to report this to supervisors before he decided to leak it to the public. He has been living in Russia since he was granted asylum. He says he would return to the U.S. if he could be guaranteed to have a fair trial. Snowden said he's even willing to go to prison. He just wants a fair trial first, which he would not get because they won't provide access to a public interest defense. So basically, a public interest defense means a defendant who disclosed classified or protected information to avoid criminal or civil liability by establishing like the public interest in disclosure of the information outweighs the public interest in non-disclosure. So basically, it's like he wants to use this defense saying like, I should not, have criminal or civil liability because what I did, the benefits outweigh like the negatives. Like the public knowing is more important than the public not knowing.
Yeah.
And he says, he's like, I'm not asking for a pardon. I'm not asking for a pass, a parade. I just want a fair trial. That's all I kind of want, which he's not guaranteed to have. Many people have called for Snowden to be pardoned, including Amnesty International. They said he's a whistleblower who exposed human rights abuses on a mass scale and should not be punished for doing so. They previously tried to team up with the American Civil Liberties Union, or the ACLU, to petition then President Obama to pardon Snowden. However, the administration did not do so. Donald Trump had put out a series of tweets calling Snowden a traitor and how he should be executed back in 2013. So there appears to be no attempts from the public for a pardon during his administration. Don't think
Nope, I don't
he
think
would,
so.
based on those tweets back in 2013.
Yeah.
And I didn't really find any talks of a fair trial or pardon during Joe Biden's administration. I didn't really see anything like recent about pardons. It's all back to like the Obama administration, really.
Mm-hmm.
He is still with Lindsay Mills, and they now have 2 children, and they're still living under political asylum in Russia. So Snowden's whistleblowing helped open Americans' eyes to the mass spying the government was doing, and his whistleblowing also resulted in a mass decrease in the US using the Patriot Act to acquire email and bulk data. So it did benefit because now they were like, we got to back up on this because everyone's seeing what we're doing.
Oh, we weren't supposed to do that, and now everyone knows, so I guess we need to stop doing that.
Yeah. And he helped open the eyes of American citizens to just how closely the government can watch us. So just kind of crazy, like how much he revealed. And like, even if you Google it further, it gets like way more in depth. But I felt like this was already so kind of technical. I wanted to kind of just hit the high points, but just really, really crazy how much the government can watch us.
Yeah. And also wondering how many lists we are on, Courtney, because of the things that we Google.
So many. They're watching everything.
They're listening to this podcast right now. I hope you guys are liking it. I hope you guys enjoy it.
I hope you do.
You guys out here getting the free Patreon unedited video version because you just already in the computer. You don't even have to pay for shit.
You're here with us in the Zoom currently. Hi. What if someone just popped up? I swear to God, I would jump out a window.
I would shit myself.
Yeah. But it is kind of crazy, just like,
yeah,
how much. And this is also why, again, another side tangent, like when people were like, the COVID vaccines, is the government tracking us? I'm like, babe, they already are.
Right? You're like, you're like a decade
They
late
already
to that.
are.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're behind. They don't need that. They already have your phone with you and it's tracking everything.
It's like anytime someone's like, oh, how did I get this ad for this thing I was just talking about? I'm like, do you really not know how? Do you really not? Oh,
your phone.
Okay.
Your phone's listening. And that's why if you're trying to plan a surprise or get a present for someone on your home Wi-Fi, make sure to go to private mode so it doesn't pop up as an ad on their social media.
That's smart. I never would have
Or if you're looking for flights, go to private mode because then it won't trigger, because you know how like when they see people are looking at flights, the price goes up. So if you do it on private mode, it doesn't like trigger it. Those are Courtney's fast tips. Maybe just put everything on private mode. I don't really think it's that private, but you know,
every little bit helps, right? Also, this made me think about when we were at our friend Tiffany's house and we were playing some card game. I can't remember, but it's one of those where it like asks questions. It's like it asks like a question, everyone answers like yes or no, and you like put your thing in the box, and you know. And it was like, if you die, like, would you want your internet history, or like, would you rather have this or your internet history not erased? Or I can't remember what the question was, but I basically learned that my husband never uses incognito mode for anything and never deletes his search history. And I was like, really? Like, what? I was shocked.
It's who he is, I guess. And he's
like, I ain't got nothing to hide. It's all right here. You just go right ahead and,
Yeah.
So yeah, let us know if you guys use incognito mode or delete your search history, or if you think it even does anything, or if the information is still out there. I mean, as far as the NSA, like they still have it either way, but maybe like Google doesn't, or I don't know.
Maybe when you're going to look up like, another article that's like postable.com, when you type in PO, Pornhub won't come up for you if you go incognito mode, like there's just one little thing.
Those little things that can help you out. Yeah, this is just such a wild case, and also makes you wonder like what else are they doing and have access to that hasn't been made public yet, that maybe will eventually. I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what Donald Trump was working on. He was just trying to save us all.
I'm sure that's it.
That's definitely it. Yeah. Okay. That being said, Courtney, what is your perk of the week?
So my perk of the week, I'm gonna have to go kind of off the wall for this one because it's just not that the week's been bad, just nothing really like standing out. But
Hmm.
there is one girl who I first found out about her on TikTok. Her name's like Victoria Garrick. Now it's Brown because she got married. But she has a podcast that's like pretty good. But her and her best friend just teamed up and they're doing like a book club kind
Mm,
of
hmm.
podcast. So they're both reading this book that like really, really impacted them. And so each week they're talking about a different chapter of the book. So everyone can like
Oh.
read along, take their notes, and then kind of listen to like their discussion. Cause she was saying like sometimes you don't always have someone to like talk about what you
Mm,
just read with you. And so they're kind of doing that. So
that's neat.
they've only done chapter one so far. Chapter two is this week. I still have to read my chapter, but it's really fun so far because it's kind of fun to
Yeah.
like what I take from a chapter and then hearing other people talk about it and like, what did you take and how did you interpret it? And kind of
Hmm.
makes you just think more about what you're reading. But
Yeah.
her podcast in general is fun too. It's called like Real Pod. So she just has people come on like, because she tries to be just really transparent with like social media and like everything like that. So she just has people coming on talking about just real shit. So
Hmm.
yeah, that is my perk of the week because it's been fun so far to kind of
Yeah,
follow along.
because like you and I read a lot of the same books and like we'll talk about them, but we usually read them like months or years apart. So I'll be like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I just read this thing and blah blah blah, and you're like, I don't even remember that character, or vice versa, because it's like by the time like
Yeah,
the other is reading it, it's like, oh, I don't even remember what it is. But I do need to know what the book is that you're reading for. Thank you.
I was grabbing it. It's called A New Earth Awakening to Your Life's Purpose by
Okay.
Eckhart Tolle.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay, cool.
yeah, it's like pretty interesting where it's talking about like how it's like talks about the ego and how your
Hmm.
thoughts are not you and how like you need to kind of control your thoughts and how just kind of how to like perceive the world and perceive like your purpose kind of in the world kind
Hmm.
of thing and like it's just really interesting so far. And it's
Nice.
talking about like different religions, how they're interpreting stuff, and how
Hmm.
it's like kind of missing the mark on what we're supposed to be doing. I don't know. It's just really interesting so far. So
That sounds
definitely
interesting.
recommend.
I'll check it out for sure.
Well, that is my perk of the week. Jacqueline, what is your perk of the week?
So my part of the week is also book related. So like months ago at this point, I don't know, I guess it's only been like 2 months because it just came out like 2 months ago. But I put Ellen Hildebrand's new book on my library hold, and it became available like yesterday, like 2 days before we leave for the beach. So I'm like, this is like perfect timing. Like you get the Ellen Hildebrand beach read while you're actually at the beach, and it just the stars
Mm-hmm.
aligned and made that happen for me. And I'm very excited about that. So I did start reading it already because I'm like, I gotta, I can't just let it
Mm-hmm.
sit there. And also I'm afraid I'll like get too busy at the beach and like my time will run out and I won't have
Yeah.
finished it. So hopefully I'll have enough time and we'll be able to finish it. But I started it today and it's really good so far. I'm really enjoying it, and I do love that it was the perfect timing to be able to read it at the beach for Labor Day week to close out the summer. That's my perk of
I
the
was
week.
really shocked that you didn't do the whole cookout you hosted as your perk of the week. Thought that's where this was going.
Okay, so I thought about it, but then I was like, how many of my perks of the week since I've moved back have just been I saw people this week?
That's true. That's true. That's true.
Because I mean, up until like, I guess when you started talking, like, not your perk of the week, but like telling your part of the story, and I was like, oh shit, I gotta think about my perk of the week now after I took my
Hmm.
NyQuil. That was going to be my perk of the week, and then I was like, maybe I should do something that's more interesting than. Like, I don't know if that's any more interesting, but I'm like, man, people are probably just like, we get it, Jacqueline. You had social interaction again this week.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad you're going like unpredictable perks of the week, you know.
yes, trying to spice it up. But like Courtney said, we did have
Hmm.
a big cookout here this weekend, and it was a lot of fun and had all my friends, and my friends that had kids brought all their kids. So my daughter got to play with them, and we just got to,
It was a lot of kids.
yeah, they were having it, but they had a blast. They're just running around doing their thing. And, we got to drink and eat, and Andrew made us all hibachi that was delicious that we are still eating 4 days later. So, you know.
Yeah, I figured you'd be eating that for a while.
He did spice it up today though and made it like a salmon stir fry instead of like a chicken because we finished all the chicken, so then he just
Hmm.
kind of repurposed and made it more like stir fry with some grilled salmon. So yeah.
Make it a little different.
Yeah, exactly. Because as always, we cooked way too much food and, but it was delicious and it was a good time. And I do greatly enjoy being able to have my social interactions again. So,
Yes. But if you want to tell us like your thoughts on this case, like anything like major we left out, you kind of wish would have brought up about the whole Snowden leaks, or what your thoughts are. Do you think Snowden is like an absolutely horrible person and should go to prison for the rest of his life? Do you think he should be pardoned? Personally, I think he should be pardoned because I think we should know this information, how much the government's spying on us.
yeah.
Or if you want to tell us about your books you're reading, or what books we should read, or your cookouts, or...
And shout out to our patron Jennifer, who we shouted out last week because she bought a Jodi Picoult book, who is my favorite author, based on the recommendation that she's my favorite author. So she sent me a picture today and let me know that she's trying out one of her books, Keeping Faith.
Okay. I know I've read it, but I don't recall it at the moment.
We can talk about it after we disconnect, because I don't want
I
to
know
give away
I've read it, but I've read so many of them at this point. I'm like, it kind of comes back, but not really. Anyway.
But yeah, so we do appreciate you letting us know that you're reading the books that we talk about. So keep doing that.
Yeah. Yes. But you know where to find us on all the social media in order to tell us about that. It's all in the show description. But the most important way, as Jennifer did, was to join our Patreon. Yes. So patreon.com. You can go anywhere from us. That works too. You can just go to Patreon and just type our names in and it comes Patreon. Up too.
Okay, well, there's so many. Where are they?
Yeah. Sign up for all of them, I guess. Support everybody. But the caffeinated crimes part is also an essential part. But we have tiers anywhere from $3 to $20. So if little as $3 a month, as much as $20, you get different perks in each tier. You get ad-free episodes, you get bonus episodes, you get a pin and sticker, quarterly gifts, Discord access with us, just a lot of perks there. So go check that out, sign up, even if you just want to do like a couple months and then ditch out and come back later, maybe, like totally fine too. Yeah. Just any support we really greatly appreciate.
Yes, and as always, anytime you can leave us a 5-star review on wherever you listen to us. Apple Podcasts is great because that is where like all of the big charts and things in the podcast world are. But anywhere that you're listening that's like, oh, do you want a review? Yes, I do. 5 stars. They're great. We love them. We do really appreciate when you do that for us. So thank you.
Yes, definitely. And in the meantime, go have a cup of coffee.
And don't commit a crime.